A single careless word can change someone's entire life. In July 2013, while Hartford, Wisconsin police were still struggling to find the killer of 19-year-old talented girl Jessie Blodgett, they never imagined that the perpetrator had already exposed himself through a detail only the killer could know. What made Daniel Bartelt, the close friend who was comforting the victim's family, become the #1 suspect? And why was a peaceful city that hadn't seen a murder in 30 years shaken by this horrific crime? Welcome to the Case Files, where we explore the most shocking and mysterious cases in the world together. I'm your narrator on this journey to uncover the truth behind these extraordinary crimes. Today, we're going back to 2013, to the city of Hartford in Wisconsin, USA, where a murder case shook the entire local community. In this episode, we're taking a deep dive into the infamous case of the Jessie Blodgett case, when a slip of the tongue became evidence of guilt. A story about buried talent, false friendship, and how the truth was finally revealed through the killer's own words. Setting: the peaceful city of Hartford. Hartford, Wisconsin, a small city with about 14,000 residents, famous for its endless cornfields and tight-knit community. This is a place where many families don't even need to lock their doors when they leave home. For nearly 30 years, this city had never recorded a single murder, but everything would change in the summer of 2013. The victim: Jessie Blodgett, the community's shining star. Jessie Marie Blodgett, 19 years old, was the embodiment of talent and compassion. She was a sophomore theater student at the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee, while also being an excellent violinist. From a young age, Jessie had shown exceptional musical talent and received a full music scholarship. But Jessie wasn't just outstanding for her talent. She was a beautiful, kind girl who was always ready to help others. Jessie actively participated in social activities, fighting against domestic violence and protecting animal rights. She believed that music could heal the wounds in life. In July 2013, Jessie was preparing for the role of the fiddler in the famous musical Fiddler on the Roof at the Hartford Community Theater. At the same time, she was also organizing free piano and violin classes for children in the area. Could you imagine that such a talented and kind girl would become the victim of such a brutal crime? The fateful day, July 15, 2013. On the night of July 14th, after a successful performance at the theater, the cast organized a celebration party. Jessie came home at 1 a.m. on July 15th, still excitedly telling her mother about the performance before going upstairs to rest. The next morning, Jessie's father went to work at 8 a.m. as usual. Her mother, Mrs. Joy Blodgett, went to her daughter's room at 8:15 a.m. to get clothes and saw Jessie still sleeping soundly. Knowing her daughter had come home late, she didn't wake Jessie up. At 12:20 p.m., when Mrs. Joy came home for lunch and was preparing for Jessie's piano lesson, she called her daughter from downstairs, but got no response. Worried, she went up to Jessie's room and knocked on the door. No one answered. What had happened in that silent room? When Mrs. Joy opened the door and stepped in, she saw Jessie lying on the bed with the blanket covering her head completely. She shook her awake but got no reaction. When she pulled back the blanket, a horrifying moment struck. Jessie was dead, her body stiff and with clear marks around her neck. Mrs. Joy panicked and called 911. Ambulances and police quickly arrived, but it was too late. The crime scene: unusual signs. Medical examiners quickly determined this wasn't an accident or suicide. Jessie had been murdered by strangulation. However, the crime scene was extremely strange. Windows and doors were all intact, with no signs of break-in. No valuables were stolen. Jessie's clothes were scattered around the house. Her hair was still wet. According to her mother, Jessie never slept with wet clothes, or left things messy. This showed that the killer had cleaned up the crime scene after committing the murder. More importantly, police found a roll of tape with fingerprints under the bed, something the Blodgett family confirmed they had never owned. The killer must have been someone familiar with the house and knew exactly when no one would be home. The first clue: Melissa's attack. 3 days before Jessie was murdered, at 9:45 a.m. on July 12th, a young girl named Melissa was walking her dog at Richfield Park when she was attacked by a stranger. Melissa recounted she was returning to her car to get water when she heard hurried footsteps behind her. Turning around, she saw a man about 19 years old, 6'1", tall, weighing about 190 pounds, well-dressed, running toward her. Initially, she wasn't alarmed, thinking the man was in a hurry, but he suddenly lunged at her. Melissa was stabbed in the hand, but quickly fought back. She used all her strength to push the attacker away, shocking him with her resistance, and he fled. Melissa described in detail to police the attacker's green car and noted that his hand was also injured in the struggle. Could these two incidents be related? The turning point: Daniel Bartelt appears. Following the clue about the green car, police traced it to a middle-aged couple. They didn't match Melissa's description, but they had a 19-year-old son named Daniel Bartelt, who perfectly matched the suspect's profile. On July 16th, one day after Jessie died, police called Daniel for questioning. Coincidentally, Daniel was at Jessie's funeral, as he was her close friend. In the first interrogation about Melissa's attack, Daniel vehemently denied it, but police discovered he had a wound on his hand. Daniel explained it was from a work accident. However, when police investigated, they found Daniel had lied about having a job. In reality, he had dropped out of school and was just hanging out every day. After a month of being exposed, Daniel finally admitted to attacking Melissa, claiming he wanted to make others feel scared. The fatal mistake: words that incriminated himself. While investigating Jessie's case, police still had no concrete leads about the killer. But during the interrogation about Melissa, Daniel accidentally said, "A friend of mine died yesterday, so tonight I have to go to her house." When police asked more about Jessie's death, Daniel casually replied, "She died after being raped." This was the crucial point of the case. Jessie's autopsy report hadn't been released yet, and the detail about her being raped was only known to the investigation team. Even Jessie's family and the media only knew she had been murdered. No one mentioned sexual assault. How could Daniel know this detail if he wasn't the killer? The complex relationship. Daniel and Jessie. Daniel Bartelt was also a musical talent, an excellent violinist since high school. He was described by friends and teachers as humorous, intelligent, and outgoing. Daniel and Jessie had known each other since high school, sharing a passion for music and theater. They had dated for about 3-4 months during their freshman year of college, but broke up when they entered their sophomore year. After that, they maintained a good friendship. Daniel frequently visited Jessie's house. They played music together and posted their activities on social media. Before Jessie died, they had participated in the Fiddler on the Roof performance together. In everyone's eyes, Daniel was a talented, kind young man. No one could imagine he was the killer. Scientific evidence begins to accumulate. After Daniel's incriminating words, police focused their investigation on him. They obtained a search warrant for Daniel's house and made terrifying discoveries. In Daniel's bedroom, blood-stained clothes, the outfit he wore when attacking Melissa, the book, The Interpretation of Murder, various climbing ropes, electrical tape, and Intertape 698 tape. In Daniel's garage, multiple types of rope similar to those found at the crime scene. The same type of tape as the roll found under Jessie's bed. Evidence from Woodlawn Park. Daniel told police that on the morning of July 15th, he went to Woodlawn Park to read and write novels from 6:30 a.m. to 10:25 a.m. Surveillance cameras at the park recorded Daniel arriving with a bulging backpack on his back and leaving with a noticeably flatter backpack. What had Daniel thrown away at the park? Police searched the trash cans and found a Kellogg's Frosted Mini Wheat cereal box full of evidence, a SpongeBob beach towel with blood, bloody paper towels and antiseptic wipes, 2 different types of climbing rope, Intertape, 698 tape, a homemade gag ball. More importantly, Daniel's car contained the same type of cereal as the box found. DNA and decisive scientific evidence. DNA test results showed DNA from both Jessie and Daniel on the climbing ropes, Daniel's fingerprints on the tape roll under Jessie's bed, Daniel's sperm found in Jessie's body. Ligature marks on Jessie's neck, wrists, and ankles matched the types of rope found. A witness reported that around 8 a.m. on July 15th, she saw 2 cars parked in front of Jessie's house, one silver, Jessie's, and one green, Daniel's. When she left at 10 a.m., both cars were still there. Motive: when virtual world wasn't enough satisfaction. Police found extensive searches about famous serial killers on Daniel's computer. He was particularly obsessed with violent action movies and brutal sexual content. Psychological analysis showed Daniel had gone through a crisis period, dropping out of college, lying to his family about work, increasing pressure from parents. Dark thoughts gradually formed in his mind. Daniel's first target was Melissa, but she successfully fought back. He turned to Jessie, someone who trusted him and was easier to access. Recreating the crime. Based on evidence, police recreated the sequence of events. On the morning of July 15th, when Jessie's family went to work, Daniel used a spare key or some other way to enter the house. He knew Jessie was sleeping alone. Daniel had prepared ropes, tape, and other tools. He took advantage of Jessie sleeping soundly to tie her up, sexually assault her, then kill her by strangulation. After committing the crime, Daniel carefully cleaned up the crime scene to create the impression that Jessie died in her sleep. He took the evidence to Woodlawn Park to dispose of before going home. The most terrifying thing was that after killing Jessie, Daniel went to her house to comfort the family like a good friend. The trial and sentence. On July 31st, 2013, Daniel Bartelt was charged with first-degree intentional homicide for Jessie Blodgett, attempted homicide with intent to kill for Melissa, first-degree reckless endangerment, false imprisonment. Daniel pleaded not guilty, but the jury only needed 3 hours of deliberation to convict him. On October 14, 2014, Judge Todd Martins sentenced Daniel to life in prison without parole, calling him a self-pitying and self-absorbed failure. Throughout the trial, Daniel showed no emotion or remorse, still insisting on his innocence. Jessie's family's forgiveness. The most amazing thing about this case was the attitude of Jessie's family. Her father, Buck Blodgett, said before the court, "We cannot accept what Daniel did, but that doesn't mean we cannot choose to forgive. I forgive Daniel not because of him, but because of my daughter." Buck Blodgett even told Daniel, "I don't just forgive you, I love you." Conclusion. The Jessie Blodgett case is a heartbreaking tragedy, showing how crime can come from those closest to us. Daniel Bartelt, a talented young man with a bright future, let dark thoughts control him, turning himself into a killer. This story is also proof that justice will ultimately prevail. A careless word became the key for police to solve the case, proving that the truth cannot be hidden forever. Daniel Bartelt is currently serving his sentence at Wisconsin-Waupun Correctional Institution and still maintains his innocence. He will never be free. Jessie's family has turned their pain into motivation to help others. In 2016, Buck Blodgett established the Love is Greater Than Hate project, a project fighting against male violence toward women, continuing his daughter's legacy. Jessie Blodgett will forever be remembered, not just as a victim of a crime, but as a symbol of talent, compassion, and love. Her music has ended, but her spirit will live forever. Thank you for following the case files. If this story touched your heart, please share it to spread the message of love and compassion. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss other intriguing cases. See you in the next episode.